Hello friends, once again welcome to my channel Learning Point. This is Karthikeya Goyal and I am here with my new video based on atoms and molecules. So without wasting time, let's get started. In the ancient time, Indian and Greek philosophers have always wondered and were confused about the different forms of matter and how all these matters that are existed are formed, and various philosophers came up with different theories. One such common idea at which Indian and Greek philosopher arrived was the idea of divisibility. It stated that if we go on dividing matter, a stage will come when particles cannot be divided further. The Indian philosophers named these particles Parmanu, whereas the Greek philosophers named these particles as atoms. By the end of the 18th century, the scientists became interested to know more about the compounds, atoms, and started their research about them. Then one scientist named Antoine Lavoisier came up with two most important laws of chemical combination, which were law of constant proportion and law of conservation of mass, and these laws were only established after conducting various experiments. So now let us take a look on both of these laws. The first law is law of constant proportion. What this law signifies? Let us have a look at this law. This law states that a pure chemical compound always consists of the same elements that are combined together in a fixed ratio by mass. For example, let us take water. We know that the chemical name of water is H2O and the mass of one atom of hydrogen is 1 and mass of one atom of oxygen is 16. There are two atoms of hydrogen, therefore total mass will be 2, and there is one atom of oxygen, therefore total mass will be 16. And after finding the ratio of hydrogen is to oxygen, you will find that the ratio comes to be 1:8. Therefore the ratio between the elements is 1:8 and this ratio will never change. Now let us take example of carbon dioxide, which is composed of carbon and oxygen, and its chemical name is CO2. The mass of one atom of carbon is 12 and mass of one atom of oxygen is 16. There is one atom of carbon, therefore total mass will be 12, and there are two atoms of oxygen, therefore total mass will be 32. Now after finding the ratio of carbon is to oxygen, you will find that their ratio is 3:8 and this ratio between elements will never change. Therefore, we can conclude that the ratio of the elements doesn't changes and the compound is made up of only this fixed ratio. Now let us come upon the second law, which is law of conservation of mass. What this law signifies? This law states that the mass cannot be created nor be destroyed in a chemical reaction, and the total mass of reactants before reaction is equal to the total mass of the compound formed after reaction. For example, C plus O2 is equals to CO2. Here mass of carbon is 12 and mass of oxygen is 16. After reaction, the amount of carbon dioxide produced will have the mass 44. That is, the sum of mass of reactants before reaction is equal to the sum of mass of compound after reaction. Now let us focus on the Dalton's atomic theorem. According to this, all matters, whether an element, a compound or a mixture, are composed of small particles called atoms. He used the word atoms given by the Greek philosophers. The postulates of this theory are: all matter is made up of very small particles called atoms. Atoms can't be divided further and can't be created nor be destroyed. Atoms of same elements are identical and have same mass, but the atoms of different elements have different mass and have different chemical properties. Atoms combine in ratio of small numbers to form compounds. The number and kind of atoms are constant in a given compound.